Hey, welcome to Cyber-Conversations, the show where it's okay to agree to disagree. Today, I'm here with my friend Bob, who was here when we were discussing which movies are Christmas movies. We're also joined by Bob's son, Christian. And today we are delving into, for the first time, the DC Extended Universe, beginning with Man of Steel, which was released in 2013, directed by Zack Snyder and starring Henry Cavill and Amy Adams, etc. So, hey, Bob and Christian, how are you?
Good.
Doing
How's
well.
it going, Josh?
Good, good. Just finished watching the movie a couple days ago, just to kind of refresh myself. Still have the same impression I did back when I watched it, which is that I enjoy the movie. I'm not going to say that I don't. I do enjoy it, and technically, it's great. It's just, to me, watching it doesn't feel like I'm watching a Superman movie. And this is not me throwing any kind of shade at Henry Cavill. I actually think Henry Cavill is a great actor, and he acts really well with the part as it is written. My biggest problem with it is what Zack Snyder wrote. I don't feel like he's Superman. I feel like it's a guy in a Superman suit with Superman's powers, but he isn't Superman. So I feel like I'm just watching a movie about some other guy impersonating Superman.
Disagree with that respectfully.
Yeah.
I
know a lot of people. I know a lot of people love it, and I'm cool with that. Like I have no problem with it. But to me, it doesn't feel like Superman because I grew up with, the bright, colorful Superman who was, much more lighthearted.
Well, so just so everybody who's listening knows, so Christian is very much immersed in the DCEU. He knows a lot about it, and that's why I wanted him to be on the show, because he could speak to some of this stuff. I wanted to say at the outset, and I don't know if I can get an agreement. I mentioned this to Christian the other day, but I feel like that at the time. So we had, if we back up a little bit in time, we have Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy.
Yeah.
We had we had Superman Returns, which they were trying to make as a more direct sequel to Superman 2 with Christopher Reeve. And I guess the one thing I would say about the dark and the everything else, and the kind of how, and maybe, you guys can speak to this too. I'll let Christian speak to this after I say this, is I think that we went through this period of time where the realism factor was important. These grounded superhero movies that were in more of a realistic time frame, and Snyder's version of Superman, and the godlike character. How would people on Earth look at him? And if you look at that period of times, it's not just Man of Steel. Man of Steel kind of, the Snyderverse, and I know we're going to go through this whole thing. I know we're the DCEU / Spider-Verse, or Snyderverse, not Spider-Verse. Jeez Louise. Snyderverse. Sorry, DC, not Marvel. Is I think we went through this era of grounding as superheroes, and I think that's really what Snyder was trying to portray as the way people would react to him and that type of thing. Now the movies that we're getting are more rooted in the pure comic book component of it. And I want to hear what Christian has to say. Or Josh, you can go ahead. Or Christian, do you want to speak on that?
Well, I did have something that, we don't really need to take turns here. Just, interrupt when you need to. But so my thoughts are that basically, I don't think that Warner Brothers, movie studios in general, but Warner Brothers has really demonstrated this. They don't seem to have any visionaries working for them. So they seem to copy whatever is successful at the time. So we got the Nolan Batman movies, which were dark and gritty realism, And they were like, okay, so now let's make a Superman movie, but we got to make it dark and gritty. And and that's when Man of Steel started getting its first treatment. And so they put together Man of Steel, and I'm not sure how far into the future they were looking, but this was right around the time when Kevin Feige was putting together the Marvel cinematic universe, and he did something that movie studios never do, and this actually calls back to all the way back when I was a really young kid. I mean, not really young because it was after '89, but
That's still really young, dude. Sorry.
well, yeah, okay. But the point is that I asked someone who I was kind of connected to the whole show business scene. I said to him, like, we've got Christopher Reeve as Superman, and we have Michael Keaton as Batman. Why don't we take those two and put them together and make a Batman and Superman, like, world's finest movie? And the guy said, well, see, the problem with that is that you're putting three franchises at risk. And this is when I learned what franchises were in the movies. So, Superman is a franchise, the one that starred Christopher Reeve. Then Batman is a second franchise. And if they made a world's finest movie, that would have been a third franchise. But they were thinking that if the world's finest movie tanked, it wouldn't just destroy its own franchise, but the other two franchises as well. And they were scared to do that. The people who see their vision is money. They have no other vision beyond that. What Kevin Feige did was like, what it is Kevin Feige, however you say it.
Feige. It's Feige.
Yeah, he took charge of Marvel Studios and he said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. So he greenlit Iron Man. And then while that was filming, he went to Universal, who owned the rights at the time to Hulk. And he said, okay, we want you to make a movie. I'm going to help produce it. You're going to make it. You put it together and distribute it, but we're going to help pay for it. In return, you give us rights to the Hulk when we do an Avengers movie. And Universal had nothing to lose because the last time they made a Hulk movie was that one with Ang Lee.
Yeah, the Eric Bana.
And Eric Bana, that whole thing, the incredible Hulk. So they didn't really care. So they were like, okay, yeah, sure, let's do that. And so Kevin Feige put together Iron Man, and while that was putting together, he got Hulk off the ground, and he greenlit Iron Man 2, and he greenlit Thor, and he greenlit Captain America, and even the first Avengers movie. And then the people at Paramount were like, you can't do that. The penny pushers, they were like, no, that's costing too much money, and you're putting too much at risk, and we don't want you to do that. And Kevin was like, well, dude, I did it. It's already done. And so they had no choice. And that's what was revolutionary about it. And when the Marvel Cinematic Universe took off like crazy, that's when Warner Brothers was like, oh shit, we got to do that too.
Yeah, they rushed.
That's kind of why I think what happened after Man of Steel is we got Batman versus Superman, which didn't even introduce just Batman. Well, we had to throw Wonder Woman into it too. And then right after that, we got the whole Justice League. It's like, we got to rush. We got to do our Avengers movie as soon as possible. So, like, it just seems like Warner Brothers copies everyone else. They see the dark and gritty realism of Christopher Nolan's Batman, so they want to make Superman dark and gritty, which is completely against character. And they want to do an Avengers type of movie, so they're going to put everyone together, and they're going to make an Avengers movie without any of the setup. And that's a big part of why the Snyderverse fell apart before it even got off the ground. No pun intended.
Yeah, Christian.
I mean, I totally understand. If you're a big Snyder fan, I mean, I don't know how much you are, but your dad said that you are. So I assume you have thoughts on this.
I mean, I appreciate, you were talking about, Warner Bros. Didn't have any visionaries at the time. I saw the vision that Zack Snyder had, and then, I delved into kind of like the behind the scenes of what he wanted. And I felt like Warner Bros., if we're talking about not having any visionaries, it was really kind of the corporate people there. They didn't really have a vision. They didn't have the same respect for what he was trying to do. And yeah,
Oh,
we had
agreed.
we had a grounded Superman starting off with Man of Steel, and it was nitty gritty, trying to copy Christopher Nolan's
Yeah.
success and all that. And it really was rushed. I mean, even Zack Snyder, probably admitted at some point, I can't confirm, but that it was kind of I need to catch up with Marvel. I need to
Yeah.
catch up with Feige. And, and so it really was kind of a mess at that point. But I saw what he was trying to do, and that's why I really appreciate the movies that he did, introduce within the universe that he created.
Yeah. And I should clarify, like when I say they don't have vision, I'm not talking about Zack Snyder. That guy is definitely a visionary. He had ideas, and I could see the direction he was going in. I think it was the corporate people who had no idea what they were doing, and they're just like,
Exactly.
let's copy what everyone else did, and it'll work for us too. And they probably pressured Zack Snyder, as well. Um, I like a lot of Zack Snyder's movies. I don't like all of them. Like I thought 300 was not a bad movie, just not much of anything. I loved The Watchmen.
Well,
The
and that's
theatrical,
so. Let me just say something there. Is I think that they wanted, because of Nolan, or because of that seemed to be what they wanted. I think they wanted what Snyder could do. They just didn't let Snyder do Snyder's thing, like with Man of Steel and that type of thing. I mean, every director who's done something. What was his name? Christian Ayers, who did Suicide Squad. I know.
Oh, David Ayer.
David Ayer. David Ayer, he wanted to make that movie a completely different way. And there's a following, just like with the Snyder cut of Justice League. There is a following for the Ayer cut of the Suicide Squad. Because
I guess we should read which one is, because there's Suicide Squad and there's the Suicide Squad.
Right. I don't mean the Suicide Squad, not the
Oh, yeah,
gun.
you're talking about
not-
the first one.
Yeah, Suicide Squad with Will Smith as Deadshot.
Yeah.
And
That's the worst one.
that it's this is a respectful podcast, but Josh, seriously,
Well,
Suicide Squad is
I'm not a fan.
again. I understand.
No,
that.
I have no.
And I'm not trying to
people
convince
who like
you.
it. No, definitely not. And
it's like what Christian said. No. You're right. It's a lot of people don't. I've always viewed movies, and you know me because you've known me for 1,000 years. Is that there's times where I appreciate, because I can see what the director was trying to do, and I think if the director was allowed to tell the story he wanted to tell. And I know we're like really off of Man of Steel right now. We need to bring it back around.
Yeah.
But I think that if he was allowed to tell the story, if all directors were allowed to tell the story that they want to tell, they know it's the story that people want to see. I think that, but Warner Brothers, I know in particular, out of any studio, I've heard the worst complaints in general from them that. They're like, they come in and they're like, no, you need to do it this way. And I think that's what happened with the entire DC EU.
I think Warner Brothers has a reputation of being very, very hands-on and not leaving things to the directors, and too many cooks in the kitchen always causes problems.
Exactly. So anyway, back to Man of Steel.
Yeah, and I should also interject real quick. We are for our viewers, we are talking specifically about Man of Steel, but I think it would be impossible and even possibly a little bit irresponsible if we didn't compare and contrast them to the other iterations of Superman that exist, which includes the Christopher Reeve Superman series, the new movie, which just came out a few weeks ago as of our recording this, the Superman in 2025, starring David Corenswet. Corenswet? I think
Corenswet?
I don't know how to say his last name.
I think you had it right, Josh.
Okay. Also, there are various TV shows. There's, Smallville and the animated series, and what was it, Superman and Lois. Even looking at the Arrowverse, which had, Superman less because it was about, various other heroes, but I know that he was in it. So we may bring up some of those I doubt there will be anything spoilery, especially from the new movie, but just want to say that we probably will bring them up. But the purpose of this podcast is specifically about Man of Steel.
Yeah.
That's it. I
So-
just thought I should get that out of the way.
No, and you're right. You can't, you can't talk about it.
So basically, the way I see things, it's I like this movie, and I don't want anyone to think I don't like it. But as far as a Superman movie goes, I still prefer the Christopher Reeve movie. I love the new movie, the one with David Cornsweet. I thought that one was definitely one of the best Superman movies. Man of Steel is not nearly my favorite. I think it's a good movie. I enjoy watching it, but I still don't feel like it's nearly my favorite. And I still don't get the impression I'm watching a movie about Superman. I'm watching a guy who doesn't even know if he wants to save people.
Yeah,
Well,
it's.
Go
I
ahead,
mean,
Christian.
I was gonna say, and commenting on that, I love Christopher Reeve as well. I mean, obviously, my dad showed me those movies, at least the first two. I don't remember, 3 or 4. But
Three
I
was
love them.
barely a Superman movie. It was a Richard Pryor movie that happened to have
Yeah.
Superman in it.
I agree, but Superman 3 in its own way was pretty cool. Anyway, sorry, Christian. Continue.
It had some good moments in it, but it was basically a big Richard Pryor movie. And Superman 4 had a great heart, like a lot of great ideas about nuclear disarmament. Christopher Reeve wrote part of the story, co-wrote the story. They ran out of money, but the story wasn't that great to begin with, and so Superman 4 is hilariously bad. I mean, I enjoy watching it for what it is, but the lack of funds is very noticeable. The flying scenes where you could practically see the wires. I mean, it looks like
It was Jaws 4, the revenge of Superman movies.
No, Jaws 4 at least respected that there was a shark. This was like when piano wires attacked. This was like a movie about piano
Superman
wires
4 was
grabbing people off the floor because
I love
they couldn't
Christopher-
afford. Yeah.
I love Christopher Reeve, but Superman 4, I think they were trying to re-spark what they had with 2, with the 3 bad guys, and do that kind of over again. But Superman 4 was the big. It ended up being a big steaming pile.
But
Nobody's fault.
But how could you not like Superman 4 being the big splash breakout of Mark Pillow, the magnanimous Mark Pillow?
Oh God,
he played Nuclear Man.
Nuclear Man was such a shit
else.
pile. It's shit pile. It was a shit pile. Anyway, sorry, Christian. Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
No, I was just gonna say it's funny. It's funny listening to you guys talk about that because I'm like I didn't grow up with those ones. In reality, I actually grew up with first
Man
with
of
Brandon
Steel.
Routh.
Brandon
Routh and Superman Returns.
Yeah.
And even that movie I respect in its own right.
I enjoyed that too. I've heard some of the arguments, and I agree. Like making Superman a stalker, maybe not a great look, but Brandon Routh really nailed Christopher Reeve's mannerisms. They wanted it to be a sequel to Superman 2. They were pretending that Richard Pryor, Part 3, and Superman meets Nuclear Man. They wanted to pretend those don't exist.
Superman 4, The Quest for Shit.
They wanted it to be just a sequel of the first 2, and I understand that. And I think that Brandon Routh did a great job. It was just it kind of meandered and didn't go anywhere. Like it was just him endlessly pining over Lois and stalking her through her bedroom window. It was kind of creepy.
Yeah, it was kind of creepy, but you know what? It's for what it was. Who was it who made that one? Was it Richard Donner?
I don't even remember. I should. Well,
it was Brian Singer.
You're
It was
right.
Brian Singer. You're right. Sorry. Brian Singer even afterwards was like, yeah, because he told it as a love story because he wanted to keep the vibe, and then he ended up doing even afterwards he was like, yeah, I should have had more like.
But there's so many
scenes and
weird
stuff.
things in that movie, though. Like especially considering Superman 2. Lois and Superman were together, and he became a human, and they slept together, and all of that. But then at the end of the movie, he uses his newfound power, magical kiss of forgetfulness, which of course he always has. And he makes her forget everything. Actually, I have heard there are some comics where he does have the power to make people forget recent events. I don't know if that's an official thing, but in Superman 2, it was definitely a thing. He kissed Lois. She had no idea that he was Superman anymore. So you would think at some point in Superman Returns, when the kid chucks a piano at a guy, you would think Lois would be like, "When did you screw me, Superman?"
Oh God, I never really thought about that before.
Yeah, when did you rape me?
But dude, that's harsh.
Well, I'm just saying, she
We're
has no
going to edit
memory
that
of it.
out. Okay. Forgive Josh,
Oh.
everybody. I'm just kidding. We're not going to edit
Well,
that
I'm
out.
just.
We're going to leave that in there.
You can
Says-
you can edit it or leave it in as you think is best. But I mean, thinking about the point that she has no memory of this, like, you know, she's got to know that this kid didn't get superpowers from Cyclops, who she was dating at the time.
I know.
She-
that was a tough sell because X-Men 2 that had come out, and so I couldn't see James Marsden as anything other than Cyclops. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what's Cyclops doing in a DC movie? What the shit? So crazy.
You know,
This is crazy.
And this kid isn't throwing pianos because he's Cyclops' kid. He's throwing pianos because she had sex with Superman, but she doesn't have memory of that. So,
Or he could be
you
a
know,
mutant. We could go with the Cyclops angle.
the point is that, you know, I enjoyed Superman Returns, but there are some problems.
Yeah, well, there's problems with all of them. I think with Man of Steel, I think the thing I liked, and this is one of the things that I thought about with Man of Steel, is that they really focused on, you know, his childhood and his finding himself, right? Because I was thinking of how in Superman with Christopher Reeve, you know, he reaches a certain age and he finds the green glowing crystal, and then he goes on his walkabout, which he ends up in the Arctic Circle or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, in the North Pole.
Right. So he throws the crystal Fortress of Solitude, right? If you think about it, there was none of that. You know, they had his ship, you know, that he came to Earth with as a baby, and then they had the little Superman, you know, the little symbol, whatever, button pressy thingy. I don't even know what you call that thing, but they had that. But if he had never found that ship in the ice, would he have continued trying to figure out what he was? You know, he didn't have. So, you know, when Superman, I mean, if you remember in Superman,
Well,
hang on, it was Superman with Christopher Reeve. Even on the way to Earth, you've got Jor-El like homeschooling him in the capsule. I mean, he's like getting a freaking Ivy League education. He lands, and he's like 3 or whatever he is.
Yeah,
3, I think he was like 3, and he's like already Harvard educated coming out of the capsule. You know what I mean? And I mean, even he had strength. He already has strength of the brain. There was none of that in Man of Steel. He didn't have any clue or anything else. So I think that actually lends itself to, here's a guy, he's got these powers, no idea. Parents have no idea. And I think that, you know, if I were to, you know, it was just a different, you know, retelling or showing. Again, there is something to be said for, you know, the grittiness aside and Snyder's thing. There's something to be said for grounding it in reality and having a character face some of the problems.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
So.
I agree. And also, not for nothing, the comics had changed quite a bit too between the two movies. In 1978, when they released Superman, they were still going with the classic Golden Age version of Superman.
Right.
He came to Earth, and he immediately had super strength. So they showed that in the movie with, you know, 3-year-old Kal-El lifting the truck when it falls over, when the jack fails, in Superman 1978. In the newer versions, Superman didn't develop his powers until, you know, he started getting a bit older. And they show that in Man of Steel a bit. And Smallville, which was a big influence on the new movie, the one that came out in 2025, they referred a lot to Smallville when they were talking to David Cornsweet about how they wanted him to be his Superman. And Smallville, that whole show was about him discovering his powers, for what it's worth.
Yeah. 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 Smallville was a good show. It's
I
funny
loved
because
it.
they basically, it's like Superman growing up, going through puberty, becoming dark goth Superman. You know what I mean? He like goes through
When
all
they
the phases of
when they pitched
adolescence.
that show, when they originally said like we're doing Smallville, and I looked at it and I was like, this is freaking Dawson's Creek with superpowers. Why are
Exactly.
they
That's
doing
what
this?
everybody said.
Yeah,
It's Dawson. I mean, look what they did with Gotham.
yeah.
I mean,
But
Gotham
you know
was
what? I watched Smallville when the series premiere came out, the pilot episode. I watched it thinking, well, this is going to be a real piece of shit, and I loved it. I mean, it had its growing pains, and the first season is definitely one of the weakest. But I got into it, and by the time they were in like season 3 or 4, I was completely hooked.
it was a
I ended
popular
up
show.
I ended up watching the entire series when it was out, and since that series ended in 2011, I have now watched it, I believe, 8 times, front to back.
You have problems. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, do you need
I don't
help?
know. I just finished it. I just finished it a couple of weeks ago, my 8th rewatch.
Nice.
The show is definitely showing its age. And of course, there's things about that show too that like we didn't know at the time, like Chloe Sullivan, who's an interesting character, played amazingly well by a woman who didn't go on to make the best choices in life, but it can't knock her acting ability.
Yeah.
Allison Mack is a phenomenal actress. That's not to say she's a horrible person, or at least I'm willing to say she was a young kid who got completely what's the word? Completely fooled by a guy who was much more experienced at fooling people.
Yeah.
So but that still doesn't excuse her. Like she's got to take responsibility for actions. She does, and I appreciate that. I'm not going to wish I'm not going to wish ill toward her,
Right.
but I don't think she's got a career anymore.
Yeah.
At least
No,
not
she
in
doesn't.
acting.
Right. Right.
And I'm okay with that too. But not for nothing, I love the show Smallville.
Yeah. With Man of
And
Steel,
we're completely sidetracked though.
and we are completely
We were
sidetracked.
talking about Man of Steel. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to Man of Steel. Apparently, I'm going to lead the conversation on this particular episode.
I do have a tendency to kind of go off.
No, that's, you know what? We do that. Christian can attest. We'll sit there after a movie and go for hours and compare and talk and all that other stuff after we see a movie, especially anyone that's related to a comic book movie. I was going to say, with Man of Steel, how did you guys feel? I'll let Christian handle this particular question. I'm not trying to turn this into a Q&A, but it is something I was thinking about. Is so there was no Jimmy Olsen character in Man of Steel, and that in the DC
in the first one,
right? In the first one, and Lois took her own pictures. How did anybody care? I don't remember there being a like an outcry as to why don't we have Jimmy Olsen.
I mean, to be fair, and this is what I'm going to say as well, and I know I probably get a lot of heat for it, and it's the same universally, right? Like Jimmy Olsen, he can be a great character. You can introduce him and have him be that supporting guy and all that stuff, and he's part of the comics and part of the original movies, right? But was there really a purpose to have him in it? Like other than maybe throwing him in to kind of lighten the mood every now and again. But with what he was doing, making it a more grounded, grittier film, there's not really a use for a character like that. Not yet, anyway. And when you're trying to introduce a Superman who's developing himself, he's trying to figure out where he's coming from. And then suddenly when he finds out where he comes from, a guy from his home planet is like, I'm going to go and just take over Earth. And he's like, well, wow, now I got to go do that. So it's like, you can have Perry White, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
And then the other supporting characters whose names I don't know. I'm so sorry, but like but just more like realistic people. Because if you think about it, right, the Daily Planet is supposed to be newspapers, just like how in Spider-Man, you got the Daily Bugle, right?
Right.
At that point in time, right, 2013, internet's blowing up. People are going on social media more, right? Things are starting to pick up. We have Facebook and everything. Newspapers are dying. And they even actually kind of comment about that in the next film, which is Batman vs. Superman. They're like, nobody reads newspapers anymore. So looking at it from that perspective, you would think Lois, as a journalist, as a modern day journalist, would have to kind of take her own pictures, or even just find the story herself without anybody else's help, because that's kind of what happens in real life.
Yeah.
And so I feel like Zack Snyder took it a step further by doing that and kind of was improving on that situation. But anyway, going back to my Universal thing, I think, and you can disagree with me, I think Lois Lane is just a bad character. Because I was going to comment on the fact that I don't like Amy Adams really as Lois Lane. I thought her performance was fine, but like she's not Lois Lane. But at the same time, I don't like Lois Lane.
I'm sorry. I mean, if you, I don't want to cut you off.
No, you're good. You go.
Okay. It's actually something that I had thought about when I watched the movie is that there's a lot of characters that are miscast. I think Amy Adams is a phenomenal actress, but she is definitely not Lois Lane. It's actually one of those things that I said before. I think Henry Cavill is a great actor. I think he was fine as Superman. I don't have a problem with him. I don't like the direction they took Superman, but I was fine with Henry Cavill. Amy Adams, I think, was horribly miscast. I think that Lawrence Fishburne is fine as Perry White.
I thought Lawrence Fishburne was great as Perry White.
I mean, I think Lawrence Fishburne is great in everything. He's such a great actor. But they had a lot of really great actors in this movie that just didn't belong in the parts that they were given. And Lois Lane is a perfect example of that. I am not sure, but they had a character, an intern at the Daily Planet named Jenny. And I don't know for sure, but I suspect that the original plan Zack Snyder wanted to do was to turn Jenny into Jenny Olsen. I don't know, because they never said her last name, and she was a nothing character that disappeared by the time they did Batman versus Superman, I think. But they did bring Steve Lombard. He's a character from the comics. They put him in the movie. Pete Ross, who was a character from the comics, and they put him in the movie. So I don't know why they would not have Jimmy Olsen, but they did put in a new character named Jenny. That makes me think that Jenny was going to be Jimmy Olsen.
No, that was you're talking about Jenny. Wait a minute, which one was Jenny? I'm trying to remember.
She's the
one that gets trapped under the
gets trapped in the crumbling building, and Perry White saves her.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
but she's kind of like there, and no one really cares. There was the guy who what's his name? Alessandro Giuliani is a phenomenal actor who played Dr. Emil Hamilton in Smallville, and they give him a bit part in this movie, and they give someone else Dr. Emil Hamilton, and then they kill Dr. Hamilton off. This is another legacy character from the comics that they put in the movie, and then they killed him.
Well,
and they didn't even have him played by the guy who was already playing him. I mean, maybe
Alessandro Giuliani played the officer, like one of the police officers.
He was like one of the military guys in the base,
military guys. Sorry,
in the Arctic base. But yeah, it was just kind of weird to me because he played Dr. Emil Hamilton in Smallville. And I mean, maybe they wanted to distance themselves from the show, but still, it just seemed weird to me that they have this guy. He's at least famous for he was in Battlestar Galactica, and I know a lot of people love that show. I would have loved to see him as Dr. Hamilton again, and not have Dr. Hamilton die.
Yeah,
but
what do you think of Kevin Costner as his dad?
I also like Kevin Costner is another person I think is completely miscast as Jonathan Kent, and I love Kevin Costner. even though he can't do a British accent, I still enjoyed Robin Hood. I enjoyed it, even though.
Dude, I fucking love Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Okay, I
that
worked
was
in a movie
great
theater.
movie.
That movie is just a great summer movie. It's total ass, but it's like just awesome to watch. And
It's
Morgan Freeman's always
the
bomb.
Yeah, it's nothing like the actual story of Robin Hood. They leave out Prince John entirely, but they don't need him because they've got Professor Snape, Hans Gruber, as the main bad guy, Alan Rickman. That was a fantastic movie. And Kevin Costner, I think he's a really great actor. The only thing I just don't think he was great as Jonathan Kent. The one thing I will say, though, about Jonathan Kent is Kevin Costner, if you look at him like in certain scenes, he actually resembles a little bit Glenn Ford, who played Jonathan Kent in the 1978 movie. But other than that, I don't think he was cast right. And Russell Crowe is another one. I think Russell Crowe is a fantastic actor who didn't belong.
Really, I thought Russell Crowe brought an air of dignity. Like, you like, I like that they kind of. I'm going to use this term very loosely, so I don't want any bad emails or anything from anybody. But like, I thought they kind of Game of Thrones it a little bit in terms of like the House of L, and then everybody had their own symbol. I actually thought it would have been kind of cool to go into some of the lore, like at the beginning of the movie with the whole, thing. But
they had symbols all the way back to the 1978 movie.
I know they did
before that.
But I thought it was cool because, and I thought Russell Crowe, like I said, he brought an air to it. Not because he's British, but he's got a screen presence that makes him, I thought him as Jarrell was actually pretty good. I mean, how do you compare him to Marlon Brando, dude? Like when I was like, the Godfather is now.
Oh, see, I don't know. Maybe because I grew up with the Christopher Reeve movies, but I enjoy Marlon Brando. Other than the fact that he doesn't learn his lines, or he didn't learn his lines. He was reading the script as he read it.
I know.
So but.
It's like my son.
By the way,
I'm gonna make you an offer. I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse and send you to Earth.
I did want to mention though, because you said Russell Crowe is British. He's not. He's
I'm sorry.
He's from New Zealand.
Russell Crowe, I apologize.
Not a big
for that.
Not a big deal, but I wanted to point that out because I do like Russell Crowe. I think he's a great actor. It didn't work for me.
He was also Robin Hood, just to throw that out there. So we had double hoods. It was a band of hoods.
Yeah, both of Superman's fathers were Robin Hood.
Christian, jump in.
Yeah, I kind of forgot you were there.
Jump in.
I don't know. I like listening to you guys.
We got that chemistry going, but that's because we're old men that have known each other all our lives. But still, your view is important. So
I like Russell Crowe. And if we're in the business of comparing like different iterations of Superman, I'm going to compare it to like how you guys bring in Marlon Brando in there, because obviously in the new Superman we have Bradley Cooper as a kind of cameo / casting for Superman's dad, and I have my own comments about that.
Wait, who?
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper played
right.
Jarrell in the what is it called? Superman what?
It's just called Superman.
Yeah, the new one is just Superman.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
the working title was
I completely overlooked.
Yeah, Superman Legacy. That's right.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought it had something else, like Superman Brave and the Bold. Just kidding. That's Batman. But yeah, I think that Bradley Cooper. But that's as you and I were talking about with like Russell Crowe, just like Marlon Brando, I think was at least a unique choice. It was interesting. I think with the Bradley Cooper thing, I mean, I can't help but feel it's like when Quentin Tarantino throws Uma Thurman in every freaking movie that he makes, right? It's like Bradley Bradley Cooper's done the voice of Rocket Raccoon, which is a James Gunn
Yep.
movie, and it's like like Bradley Cooper's kind of like James Gunn's guy. Like
Well,
Uma
that
Thurman
that
is.
often works, though. That often does work. There
Yeah,
have
but then
been
it gets
various
it gets a bit
collaborations.
exhausting.
I'm just gonna like not to say anything, but Tim Burton and Danny Elfman and Johnny Depp, the three of them.
Yeah, no, you're
You
right.
got a gold mine. You know,
Right,
Corey
but
Haim
I
and
think
Corey Feldman.
right, but not when you're throwing Bradley Cooper in because he's Bradley Cooper, and it becomes like a joke. Like, well, Bradley Cooper and I are buddies, and so I'm always,
Yeah,
it's like how Rob Schneider always pops up in an Adam Sandler movie, and or whatever, it's like a cameo, and
Yeah.
because and that's still funny and it's quick, but it's like, I mean, I didn't see that. Like I said, if we're looking at it from that perspective, Marlon Brando brought something, right? Because of Marlon Brando and who he is and how he is as an actor and his presence. Russell Crowe brought something to the role because of who he is, his acting, and
yeah.
and how he could deliver that, right? Bradley Cooper is just Bradley Cooper, and it's like, oh, look, it's Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, but
That's
Bradley
it.
Cooper, like for what it's worth, in the new movie, he's got a single monologue that he does with that recording. We don't meet him, we don't actually meet him in the movie. It's a pre-recorded thing. So like it's kind of like not even worth mentioning. Whereas Marlon Brando and Russell Crowe, they were big presences in these movies. And
Sure.
and part of it, maybe the whole thing with Russell Crowe for me, like I said, he's a great actor. I didn't see him as Jor-El, but part of it could be because of the way it was written, which isn't Russell Crowe's fault. He didn't write it. But Marlon Brando, even though I'm willing to say, like, I have a problem with people who don't learn their lines. Uh, that said, the speech he gives baby Kal-El before sending him away, and when his voice kind of breaks at the end of that, like that chokes me up. I love that scene in 1978 Superman.
It was, yeah. I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. What about Michael Shannon? What about Michael Shannon as General Zod?
Um, it's the biggest problem I had with General Zod was that it's impossible to look at him and not compare him to Terrence Stamp. And Michael Shannon, I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I know him from anything else. I've never seen him in a single other movie. So I only know Michael Shannon as Zod. And he did fine, but he's not Terrence Stamp. Terrence Stamp is absolutely incredible. And there's no comparison.
Yeah, and see, that's what I'm talking about too. That's what I thought Russell Crowe brought as Jor-El was is that presence, and just like Terrence Stamp definitely brought. I mean, Superman 2. I'm just going to throw this out there right now. Superman 2 and Spider-Man 2 are probably to this day the upper echelon of of comic book movies. I think.
Maybe. I mean,
I mean,
there's
no,
things,
seriously. I mean,
because I mean, I could definitely understand that, and I would agree to a certain point. Spider-Man 2 is a phenomenal movie, and I loved it. Superman 2, I love that movie too, but that movie had some problems, and part of it was, again, Warner Brothers not minding their own damn business and getting in the way. And not for nothing, Richard Donner's version of Superman 2, I've seen like his cut of it and not wonderful. But Richard Lester is a completely different type of director, and they brought him in when they fired Richard Donner, and Richard Lester kind of changed it into something else, and it didn't really work either. So there's a lot of weird things happening in Superman 2. I love that movie, but it definitely shows this really kind of strange vibe because there's certain scenes that you can tell are just a completely different director.
well, yeah,
because they are.
right. Yeah, you could say the same thing about the Justice League, for instance, theatrical cut, and how they brought in Whedon to replace Snyder, and he tried to marvel it up and make it more colorful, and it added in like
a bunch of bad jokes and yeah, really weird. Especially and I again, this is stuff that we didn't know at the time, but Joss Whedon, like I don't like him as a person based on what we know now. But he was my favorite writer because of Firefly, which I still think is probably the best show of all time, and accomplished more in 14 episodes than many shows accomplish in years.
Bring it back.
Sorry?
I said bring Firefly back.
Oh, I would love them too, but now they got all sorts of problems, including the fact that Ron Glass is dead, and the whole cast, the remaining cast are all old, getting old.
De-aging technology, AI. No,
Well, also, I don't think that they're that interested. And Joss Whedon, for all his faults, he was the guy with the writing. He was the one who made that show great.
yeah, no, you're right.
And but he is not a good person, and I don't see him coming back for it. I mean, I'm kind of surprised they're doing a revival of Buffy, because he was a big part of why Buffy succeeded. Buffy's a show that I didn't get into. I tried watching it, and I was just like, this kind of sucks. But my daughter loves it. She's rewatching it now. I think this is her second time, but she loves that show. But yeah, I couldn't get into it. But Firefly was phenomenal. So I was really shocked when I heard Joss Whedon was taking over Justice League. I got excited, and then I saw Justice League, the theatrical version, and I was just like, wow, this isn't good. It's not. It wasn't a bad movie. It's just not a good movie. It's just kind of like the underachiever.
Yeah,
it's like doing the bare minimum, and that's why seeing Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I admit, 4 hours is not something to scoff at. Like, you look at that and you're like, what? Well, really? A 4-hour movie about superheroes? But I'll be damned if that movie doesn't work. Even though it's the same movie with many of the same things happening, Zack Snyder's version killed it. It was so good. If they had released that in the theater instead, I suspect that Snyderverse would still be happening.
That's what everybody. You're talking about the Snyder cut of Justice League.
Yeah. Zack Snyder's Justice League, the 4-hour version.
That's more like an NBC mini-series event back in the early '90s.
But I will also say that
6 hours, 5 hours.
That Zack Snyder. I mean, Batman versus Superman did it first. Zack Snyder's Justice League continued it, but it really cemented what I have a problem with Henry Cavill's Superman. And again, it's not Henry Cavill himself. It's his iteration of Superman. They were doing injustice.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. We decided to end it on that note so that you can wonder what injustice is next week. In the meantime, I hope you have a great time. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Please hit like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, please remember, make tomorrow better than yesterday.